Hello everybody and welcome to this video about the next Wild Spirit Tarot Revamp. As usual, I have tried many times to make this video. I think the problem is I'm trying to make them perfect, so I'm just going to crack on and you'll just have to take me as you find me, as it were. I do my best. So here we have the Death or Wild Spirit Rebirth card. Now before I go on to explaining how I've revamped this, I just want to address the first thing, which is, should this tarot be a tarot? Should it remain the Wild Spirit Tarot, or should it become the Wild Spirit Oracle? Now I put that question to you and thank you for your responses. You overwhelmingly said something that I was hoping you would say, because this should stay a tarot, definitely. With the concession, which was your suggestion and one that I'd already be thinking of myself, with the concession that we have, rather than a Wild Spirit name at the top like Rebirth, we have the traditional tarot name at the top, in this case Death, and then we have a Wild Spirit-y type subtitle, which might be Rebirth, or it might be Spirit of something, in this case Spirit of Change. Not sure on that, there's plenty of time to decide, but the main thing is that this will stay as a tarot with the traditional name at the top, which will help people enormously. It won't cause any confusion. It will appeal to people that are used to the traditional tarot. It will help people who aren't used to tarot and are coming to it, and they'll be able to see exactly which card it is. So it's a win-win situation, because we'll get to keep the Wild Spirit version name underneath as well, so it doesn't lose its originality, but it also is much more functional. Yes. Okay, so let's look at what I've been doing with this card movie about thing. Okay, so what's changed most is the style, the level of realism. As I've said in other videos, I can't go backwards. I can't recreate exactly the style that I used in the original Wild Spirit. I want to keep that fairy tale charm aspect of it, the naivety, the colourful fairy tale-ness of it, but I can't replicate the way I used to draw. It's impossible, and it just wouldn't be authentic, and it's not right. So I've lost that very graphic style with the hard lines around it, and of course I've improved, because it would be really sad if I hadn't. So I've incorporated the more everyday enchantment tarot style of illustration, the more realistic style of illustration, especially with the people's faces and the creatures. And what's different is that it's a much more fluid way of creating something. It's much more subtle, it's got more depth to it, it's more realistic, and those hard outlines, the black lines around things, have completely gone. So let you see them a bit closer, you can see what I mean. There is much more of a similarity between how I did the everyday enchantment people to how I did the original Wild Spirit people. They're not quite as believable as the ones that I've got now, I hope. Let me know what you think about that. Obviously that's my opinion, that's what I've done, how I hope that it's coming across, but let me know what you think. Have I lost something in that translation? I do hope not, because I don't know how I would do it otherwise. I can't go backwards. Yeah, so does that updated style work for you? Besides that, I think this card needs some clarification. Now, a friend of mine, Roanne, pointed out in the comments on one of the videos that she finds this card in the Wild Spirit deck quite difficult to interpret. She doesn't maybe understand why I've chosen to incorporate some of the elements that I did. So I thought this would be a good opportunity, because Rowan is a very seasoned and experienced and knowledgeable reader of tarot, that if she's not quite getting it, then I'm not communicating something very well. So why have I used the elements in this card that I have? Now, first of all, the black and white room. Hope you're getting this. It's all very improvised in my current circumstances. I haven't got a special place to put things, so eventually when I have my own place I will have a much more conducive setup, but I hope you can see this as best as you can. Yes, so the black and white room. Why? Well, originally I chose this because it is like an optical illusion. It challenges our perception. It makes you feel like nothing is necessarily as it seems. And what was really strange was when I was mulling this over, because I spend so long even trying to formulate what I'm going to say in these videos, while I was mulling this over yesterday, I took a trip over to a gallery and walked straight in on a room that had a row of Bridget Riley op art with the black and white optical illusion type art, which I thought was quite marvellous, because every time I make a video there is some form of synchronicity. I really enjoy that. And while I was there, wobbly, I picked up this postcard in the shop. It's Gillian Waring piece about signs, and what's really funny, if you look at what this says, well, it's good what it says. Everything is connected in life. The point is to know it and to understand it, but somebody's written understand instead of understand, which is quite funny. I like that. I like the sort of DIY, not quite perfect aspect of it, but it's true, isn't it? Everything is connected in life. And that slight tangent there, but that was a connection that came to me just yesterday before I made this video today, that I saw the exact pieces of art that were in my head when I did this, the optical illusion. So that it's about challenging perception. It's a bit strange, it's uncanny, it's a strange environment. It's a little bit, makes you feel a little bit uneasy. Nothing is quite right. So the black and white is important as well, not just because it creates this kind of unnerving perspective, but also because it symbolises continual change. Dark to light, matter to spirit, death to rebirth. Ooh. I added in this new revamp, in the original here, you'll see that there's nothing in the doorway. I thought it was important to add in the doorway directly behind them, there's a light in the darkness at the end of the tunnel, which is a reference to those near-death experiences where people have seen the light in the tunnel as they basically leave their bodies and go into the next reality, the next realm, next level of existence. They obviously come back because they're able to tell us, but they all have, well, not all, but it's very common to have some variation on this light in the darkness. So even in the darkness there is always light, there is always, in this case, hope of change. Yes, so the doorways themselves are also really important, and I'm not quite sure, it's difficult to know exactly what I was thinking when I did this card, but I'm pretty sure that I chose them because of, well, the sort of three things. First is a very famous William Blake quote: "If the doors of perception were cleansed, then everything would appear to man or people as it is, infinite." So that is important in itself. William Blake, fantastic visionary mystic. So that's one reason why they're there. Also, Aldous Huxley named a book called The Doors of Perception. So these are the doors of perception, basically, how we see things. Doors that we go through to affect transformation. And I also discovered that, I wondered who actually said this because it's been misquoted to various people, but it was actually Ray Manzarek from the band The Doors, the keyboard player from the band The Doors, and he said something, obviously influenced by Huxley and Blake. He said something to the effect of, there are things seen, we could say that's the white, and things unseen, we could say the dark. Or he also said there's a version where he says there are things known, the light, and things unknown, the dark. It doesn't say the light and the dark, I'm just adding that in, obviously. So there are things known and there are things unknown, and in between there are doors. That's why they were called the doors. So it's symbolic of moving from one phase to another, one level of reality to another, one way of being to another. They express transition from one state of being to another state of being, and going in and out and coming back round. It's very cyclical. All the cards are very cyclical. It's not just a one-way thing. You could go out of here and come back through here. It's death and rebirth. It's a cycle. And the magician and the baby, they really symbolize this, because obviously he's a wizard, a magician, and he is magically, he's got a wand, he is able to transform. And the baby and the old man, obviously again, symbolize that cycle of birth to dying back to being reborn, which is why I put this light in the background, and round and round. And similarly, which might have caused confusion, we have the rabbit coming out of the hat. Now that was because initially the magician figure had a sort of a traditional black and white magic wand. Here I've changed it. Now he's got a sort of more pagan-y looking, if you like, magic wand with the crystal on the end. It's purple. It's not the sort of stage magician's magic wand anymore. It's a magic wand nonetheless. Anyway, the rabbit coming out of the hat was a reference to the old trick, which is not very nice, pulling rabbits out of anything at all. But it obviously, this rabbit is not being pulled. It's emerging. It's emerging from the hat, and in clover, in green clover, symbolising life, rebirth. And around the rabbit on the table we have the rabbit's bones and some dead clover leaves, showing that from death to life and round again, coming out the door. The hat is almost like another doorway of transformation, or the birthing canal, or however you would want to see it. But it's very symbolic. It all means something. It might not be the most eloquent symbology I've ever used, but I wanted to keep it because I'm trying to keep as much about the first version of the Wild Spirit as I can. I'm not looking to divert from that, because people liked this tarot and I like it, so I want to make it as good as it can be. But I don't, even if I could change that today, I'm not going to, because I want to retain that original essence of the Wild Spirit Tarot. Excuse me. So it's all indicative of the fact that we're in a cycle of growing and dying back and becoming again, even in a different form. I hope that explains it a little bit better. Yeah, also, while I was just thinking about doing this video, is that even when we're apparently physical, we're actually apparently made up of atoms are made up of 99.999 recurring amounts of empty space. So again, it's sort of physical and non-physical, but even when we're physical, we're not as we appear to be. It's all about perception. And what else can I say? Just moving my little note here. Yeah. He also reminds us of our ability to magically affect change, to transform ourselves. Every moment we can be different, to change our circumstances, to transform and to be transformed. That is his role here, the magician, the wizard. And the spotty scarf was just a jaunty little nod to the fact that this is the Wild Spirit deck. It's a sort of reminiscent of a gypsy's neckerchief. Just brings a bit of colour to the black and whiteness of it, a nice little grounded reminder of something, along with the green of the clover leaves here. It just keeps in the spirit of the deck and doesn't make it too far removed from it, because this card is quite different to a lot of the other ones, but that links us in with the rest of it. So it suggests a more enchanted reality outside of this unsettling room that we're in with this card. It's somewhat strange. It's challenging, but it is the death card, so it's not going to be completely easy to relate to. But I hope I've made it a lot clearer. I hope that clarifies some of the things that are bothering you. If there's more things that bother you about this card, please say. I don't like it when people are put off the decks because of one card that makes them, well, I don't like that one, so I don't think I'm going to relate to the rest of them now. Some of them are more difficult, and I'm making these videos and will make more videos in the fullness of time that will hopefully give you much more of an insight. And I'll also, as I'm revamping them, I will work very hard to make that symbology much more user-friendly, to make it clearer, so that you're not scratching your head and feeling uncomfortable about any of it. So that is this revamp. Now for the next one, Helena Calado, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, she suggested that I do this card, which is the Strength card. And I am very, very, very keen to hear your suggestions for which card I should do next. And I would do this one, Helena, but it's going to take a lot of work. I am really unhappy with it. The perspective on it is all wrong. The way she's sitting there is all wrong. I'm going to have to change that. Not change the essence, the elements of it, but to change the drawing. It's not right at all. I'm not happy with that one. But I will do it, obviously. But I'm trying to do the ones that aren't quite so challenging at the moment because of my circumstances. I need to do the ones that are the most easy to change over, to revamp. So I thought I might try the Sun next, because that would be a lot easier. There's a lot less that is sort of wrong, in my opinion, with it. So, and I thought it'd be nice to do that one as well, because I did do the Moon, so why not do the Sun as well? So I might do that next. But if you've got any other ideas, please tell me now before I start anything. Please do. And so that will be the next revamp, unless you suggest something else to me. The next Everyday Enchantment video I will be making will be about the Death card, because obviously I've just revamped Death, and when I've revamped I then go and do the Everyday Enchantment version of it to accompany it. So that will be the next Everyday Enchantment video. I'm also going to do my review of Rebirth's book, The Way into Fairy. That will be probably the thing I'll do next before anything else, because I've been meaning to and promising that I would do that for her. So that will be probably the next one. But before I go, a few more things. Referencing back to some of my other update videos, I had problems, as you know, with the age-old thing of our creature kin appearing in books only to be killed off. And my last video, I was really delighted to find 2 books where that didn't happen. And then, spectacularly badly, I was reading this one. This is I don't read books that aren't fantastic. This Life is Too Short. This is a book by Michelle Faber called The Book of Strange New Things. An incredibly rich, challenging, fantastic, there's lots of fantastics in this video, fantastically well written book. But there's a cat called Joshua. He appears pretty early on, and I thought, oh no, I have a bad feeling about Joshua. He is cropping up way too much. He's like a third main protagonist in this book. Oh dear. And I was sick. I mean, not physically sick, but it really sickened me, because not only is this cat killed off, but he is tortured. And I tried very hard to skip the bits, but some of it I wasn't quick enough. And once things like that are in your head, it is very difficult to get them out. So once again, I have found a book by accident where one of our creature kin meets a revolting end. And if what had happened to the cat had happened to a person, I don't think people would be very keen on the book. It really will haunt me for a long time. Have you read any books recently where the creatures, the animals, have had good endings, or not any problems at all, where they've just been treated as another main character and not been used as a plot device to be brutalized? I would love to hear whether you've come across any good, lovely, stories in that vein, because it really took me quite a while. In fact, even just, it's put me off that book now, even though it was great and I finished it with a struggle. I will never remember anything about it probably but the fact that it contained that. Ooh. What else did I want to say very quickly, because I'm running out of time? Yes, another thing that I'd like to mention before I go is that I wrote a letter to the newspaper. This disgruntled person writes letters to newspaper. I do occasionally do that to the local paper, because of people are always writing in complaining, council must cut the grass quickly, it's disgraceful grass. So I wrote about the fact that if you walk around this area, which I have found myself in because of my circumstances at the present time, well, the man that's written a letter back in the paper has estimated, because of doing a little survey in his local area, he's estimated that at least 50%, and I'd say there's more, of front lawns are covered in either block paving, tarmac, gravel, or even plastic grass. Now, there are so few gardens that are actually growing things. There might be a few pots scattered around. Some of them don't even have that. There is just, the pavements have been tarmacked, so nothing can grow in there, and gardens are just being obliterated every day. I see the van for artificial grass going around, and maybe I'll do a little count. Anyway, the point of this was, have you noticed this yourselves? What's it like where you live? The people here that are written into the paper both saying let the grass grow. Thankfully, it's wonderful to hear other people that are thinking this too. The remaining grass, and I hate this word because I never use it, they're just flowers, plants that we don't care for because they're just so good at reproducing themselves. The weeds are sprayed here on the verges. I see the people walking around with their masks on and their horrible spraying things. They're sprayed with Roundup or glyphosate, which, as we know, is absolute poison and does awful things. And that's what they do to the verges here. So not only are they cutting it, they're also nuking it with chemicals that are just an abomination to creation. So do you have this where you are? I would love to hear whether this doesn't happen where you are, whether your council or your area has found a better way of doing it. There are places where wildflowers are being planted, where the gallery was that I went to. There's a museum nearby. They've got a wildflower patch outside there. People are doing it. Apparently with this letter here, along the sides of motorways are being planted with wildflowers, and this is all good, but our own green spaces, our gardens, our areas outside are just being obliterated, and I'd love to hear whether that is not the case where you are, because it's really dispiriting. I always walk around looking for beauty and the everyday enchantment in life, and it breaks my heart to see it all being tarmacked. Anyway, I'm coming up to being cut off, so thank you for joining me. Sorry if I've waffled on. I do have lots to say to you. I love sharing it with you. Take care of yourselves, take care of all other beings, grow some weeds, and see you again soon. Lots and lots of love. Bye bye for now.